Hi, and welcome to the Church Unlimited podcast. Church Unlimited is a vibrant, Bible-based church in North Lakes, Queensland that is passionate about helping people discover the genuine love of Jesus. If you're currently looking for a home church, we would love for you to join us for Sunday worship. For more information about our Sunday service or to find out how we can best help you, head to our website at churchunlimited.com.au. We hope you enjoy this message from Sunday service.
I have a very simple message for us today as we gather together this Christmas. If I can turn my iPad on. It's a simple message, and I've actually taken it just from this verse from Isaiah. 700 years before Jesus was even born, Isaiah prophesied. And this is what he wrote of our Savior. He said, "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace." Now this message is incredibly good news for any one of us. If you've ever felt like you were at a loss for how to live your life, for what your purpose was, if you felt like you didn't know what you should do and how you should do it, this is incredible news. If you've ever felt like you weren't strong enough, that what was happening out there was too much for what you had within here. This is incredible news if you've ever felt like God was far off, that he was hard or judgmental. This is great news if you've ever felt overwhelmed or anxious. If you've looked towards the future and said, "I don't know how it's going to end and it fills my heart with fear." This message is going to bring you peace and joy, and it's going to help you encounter his presence afresh this Christmas. But because it is Christmas, there's a certain obligation for me as a preacher to package this, or wrap it, as you might say, in a bit of a Christmas wrapping. So here we go. Everybody would know. Sorry, I also laugh at my own lame jokes. Everybody would know, every child knows this in fact, that the most important, the most relevant question to ask anybody as you're heading in towards Christmas is this. Hey, what are you expecting to get for Christmas? After Christmas, you're going to ask, what did you get? But before Christmas, hey, what are you getting for Christmas? What do you think you're going to get? If your kids are anything like my kids, they've spent the last, well, if you're Oscar, 6 months to 12 months. Like as the minute he clocked off last Christmas, he was already on to the next. Just dreaming and planning and scheming about what he's going to get for Christmas. He's been dropping subtle hints forever. Like, oh, maybe I'll get this for Christmas and that for Christmas. Oscar is the ambitious kind of boy that believes that he deserves and probably will get a bodyboard and an iPad and a remote control car for Christmas because he's met me, right? But that's what kids are like, and we know it, right? They're scheming about Christmas. They're asking for ridiculous gifts. Nothing is safe in your house because they're trying to find out what it is that you actually did get them for Christmas. That's what you do, I know it. Like they're looking in every box, they're looking in every behind closed doors, they're trying to climb into the top of cupboards and shelves, just looking because my Christmas present is probably here somewhere and I'm going to find it. They're talking about what they want, they're telling other people what they want, they're asking their friends, what do you think you're going to get? And they spoil the surprise if you're silly enough to tell them anything about what their other siblings are going to get. I ran a little test just earlier this month when it was my wife Joe's birthday. I ran a little test with my kids. Like we bought a present for her, all of us together, and I actually told them what it was beforehand. And I made them swear, like, you will promise me you will not tell Mum what this is. Mum will be surprised when she opens this gift because you won't talk about it, you won't look at it, you won't even, Oscar, you're not even going to give little hints about it, okay? Zip it. I'd obviously made my point clear enough because even Tessa, who's almost 3, at the end she goes, "Dad, I didn't tell." I don't think she knew, so I don't know what she was planning on telling, but she got the message, right? But to a child, Christmas is all about the gifts, isn't it? It's all about the gifts they're going to get. They don't care so much about the giving, just mostly it's the receiving. It doesn't mean that they don't know that Christmas is about Jesus. I mean, just last week in our carol services, there was a little video where the kids from Kids Church were giving all the right Kids Church answers, right? You know, what's Christmas about? Baby Jesus, he's about this big. But they know Christmas is about Jesus, but that's a big idea for them to understand. And really what's most important in their lives is probably the gifts. So they fixate on the presents. You probably used to be like that too. There was probably a time in your life where you just absolutely were fascinated with the idea of hey Dan, what are you going to get for Christmas? Oh, see, but now you grew up. It doesn't matter so much, right? You might be thinking less about what you're going to receive and more about perhaps what you're going to give because you got old. And gifts don't give quite the same sense of excitement, do they? I mean, you're big enough that if you really wanted it, you probably went out and bought it. Let's be honest. That's why it's the thought that counts. They're nice, but gifts are just a little bit less exciting today. You know, it's funny. I was thinking about how we approach Christmas these days. And I realized that us adults, do you know we don't necessarily get it any more right than our kids do? We don't necessarily understand it any better, I think, than our children. I think we're just like our kids. Yeah, we know Christmas is about Jesus, little baby Jesus. We're remembering him and we're celebrating him. And yet we're not obsessed with presents anymore. It just means that we've put our focus somewhere else, right? Because we're mature adults. We have bigger ideas about what's so important in such a significant holiday as this. Christmas should be really more about, well, what do you make Christmas about? Do you make it about the friends and the family that you're going to spend time with? Because that's the kind of thing that we say, right? Christmas is about family. Christmas is about the joy of spending time with one another. Or conversely, it might actually be about the stress of spending time with one another, depending on what your family's like, right? But don't we tell ourselves that don't we demonstrate that Christmas is really about the people that we spend it with? Or maybe we make it, I don't know, maybe you're a foodie and you've been planning already. You've been talking about the menu for Christmas. Maybe you're having a traditional Christmas. Maybe it's with ham and cooked meats and cold salad. Maybe it's prawns on the bar. I don't know what it is, but don't we love to spend time talking about the food that we're going to eat as we celebrate Christmas together? That's what we do, right? We think about it, and we plan it, and we coordinate it. We know how we're celebrating Christmas. Maybe Christmas is important because we're not working. Like how many of you have gone on holidays because it's Christmas and you're already thinking about what can you do to relax until you have to start back up again in the new year. We've checked out of work. And so our Christmas celebrations are actually more about the opportunity to rest and relax. Or maybe it's about the fact that work won't let you rest and relax and you've got to keep on working and that's made you steamy. But isn't it ironic that this incredible holiday, as we remember the birth of Jesus Christ, as we celebrate, and we use words like love and joy and peace. Peace is a huge theme for Christmas. Isn't it funny how Christmas can so quickly lose its sense of peace and joy as it actually becomes a little bit stressful and chaotic? It becomes a little bit overwhelming with all the things that we make Christmas about. Is it at all possible that our gift-obsessed little children have gotten their focus just a little bit more correct than we have? Is it possible that all their attention that they're putting on the gifts carries greater significance than some of the things that we're shifting our attention to and we're valuing? Have we lost sight of something so important when we grew up and became a little bit less about the gifts and more about everything else, that we're losing sight of something really important? Because gifts have always been a central theme. Gifts have always been given as we celebrate Christmas, and they should be. Giving gifts is more than just remembering Jesus' birthday, right? I've talked with my kids sometimes, and I've asked them, why do we give gifts at Christmas? Because it seems a little bit frivolous, right? Oh, we're celebrating. Jesus came, so let's give one another gifts. And I know my kids have sometimes taken the logical step of, well, Christmas is Jesus' birthday, and at birthdays we give gifts. And so we give gifts at Christmas to remind us that it's a birthday party for Jesus. It's a terrible birthday party. If you all come to my birthday party and give one another gifts but not me, not right, not right. We give gifts to one another as a way to celebrate him, but do you know it's bigger than that, right? Because we give gifts at Christmas, not because we need to receive more. It's actually every gift is meant to be a reminder of what we have already received. Christmas isn't about what I will receive. Christmas is always and always has been about what have already been given. We give gifts to one another to remind ourselves of God's greatest gift to us, Jesus. I mean, everybody knows and loves John 3:16, right? It's a verse that most of us would recognize. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son. God loved us so much that at Christmas, what did he do? He gave to us the gift of his Son. At Christmas, we don't just remember that Jesus was born. It's not a birthday party. We remember that Jesus was given for us. And so we, who have received so much from God, celebrate by giving gifts to one another. And every one of those gifts, each gift that we give, is meant to be a reminder that I have already received the greatest gift of all, and his name was Jesus. Because Jesus truly is God's gift to you, to me, to all of us, to all of mankind. He is the tangible demonstration of God's love towards us. Because that's what a gift is, isn't it? You don't give gifts to people that you don't like. Can you imagine? Oh, they're not good ones anyway. Like, you're not sitting there thinking about somebody that's just done you wrong at work, thinking, oh, I am going to give them a gift. And it is going to be so good. You know, like, no, you don't think about it like that, do you? Gifts are always a demonstration of love. And so Jesus was a physical demonstration of God's love to us, his gift to us, that while we, who were far off, broken, burdened, rebellious, were apart from him, he sent his Son for us. A Son that we could never deserve, a Son that we could never earn, a Son that always and only ever could be received as a free gift. Jesus Christ, God's gift to us. That's what we remember every Christmas. You'd be surprised it's not about the friends and family. That's just nice. It's not about the trees and tinsel. They're beautiful. It is always about Jesus, and it's always about remembering God's gift to us. That's the reason that we celebrate. Have you ever noticed people receive gifts in all different sorts of ways? I don't know what you're like when you receive gifts. It might depend on who gives the gift and what it is. But sometimes, you receive gifts and you receive them with heartfelt gratitude. Oh, it's so important and so meaningful. And it could be because it's something that you've wanted for a long time. It could be because it's from someone that you've loved for a long time. And you receive it with gratitude and you accept it into your life. Sometimes you accept it with excitement and joy. It's I wasn't expecting that. I'm blown away. It was such a stitch up just recently, right? When I was talking with Jo about her birthday coming up, we're adults, so what do you really want? I want to give you a gift that you'd appreciate. And she said, all of our dinner plates, mismatched, look terrible. Some of them are scratched and chipped. And you know what I would just love? A matching set of cutlery and plates. And in the back of my mind, I could hear, it's a trap, watch out, because every good husband knows that dinner plates are not a demonstration of love. They're just a life expense. We should just buy them if you need them. I am not giving my wife plates for Christmas. Not because she wouldn't appreciate it, but because I know the hate that I would get as she told people, oh yeah, Dan got me plates for Christmas. I can't be that guy. But it's a stitch up, right? Because she would genuinely love it. And the most excited I have ever seen Jo when she received a gift was a couple of Christmases ago when her sister gave her a vacuum cleaner, which is also on the don't buy for a present list. But when it comes from your sister, it's fine, right? And I've never seen Jo so happy. I think she almost cried. Just tears of joy at this silly little robot vacuum cleaner that now warumbles around her house and gets lost. Stitch up, right? But how we receive gifts matters. Sometimes you can receive a gift with a sense of entitlement and expectation. I reckon that's my son Oscar, because he's been scheming for so long. He knows that he deserves great presents. So when you give it to him, he'll just be like, oh, I thought it would be better. Thanks. Or sometimes you receive gifts with indifference. Like, oh, cool, thanks. You can always tell when somebody really loves a gift that you give them, because they'll look at it and they'll do this. They'll be like, oh, I'll use that. They'll confirm suddenly, because they'll realize, because they care about you, but not the gift, they feel a need to affirm you. And so they'll say, oh, this book, I'll read that book one day. That's how you talk about it. So pro tip. if you receive a gift that you don't really want, don't confirm that you'll use it. Maybe just look them in the eye and say, thanks so much. And then just never use it and sell it on Facebook later on. But how you receive, it's not just that you can receive gifts in different ways, but how you receive the gift makes all the difference. When you receive a gift with gratitude, what do you do with it? Oh, man, I keep it close. I value it. I look at it often. I use it frequently. I make it a part of my life because I value it so much. Unless it needs batteries. Dads, guys, now's your reminder just to get in before Christmas and buy all the batteries that you might need for any electronic gifts. But if you don't value it, do you know what you'll do? I'll look at it. I'll say thank you for it. I might not even take it out of the box, right? I might put it away in a cupboard, and to be honest, I'll probably forget about it until later on. I'll look and be like, where did this come from? What's that even doing here? It goes straight to the pool room, so to say. I'll re-gift it. They're the gifts that end up on Marketplace. But you could be given something of such value, but if you didn't receive it, if you didn't understand it, if you didn't use it as it was intended, you may as well have not received it at all, right? Not only do you not benefit from it, but you don't recognize and understand the love with which it was given, then this incredible gift that you've been given just goes unused. And your life goes without the blessing that it was intended to have. Can you imagine being given an incredible gift? I don't even know what an incredible gift would be these days. What do you want, Ron? A big boat. Oh, ambitious. But can you imagine? Let's make it smaller and more accessible. A jet ski, right? Can you imagine if somebody gave you a jet ski? That's incredible. And you said, to be honest, I don't have a tow bar on my car. I'll just put it down the side of my house and I won't. That's a nice thought. But you'd not be blessed with the joy of riding a jet ski. You'd not recognize the extent of the gift. You wouldn't value it. You wouldn't be blessed by it. And actually, you'd probably put off the friend who gave it to you. And if you have a friend that's giving you jet skis, keep them. But it did make me wonder if how I receive a gift matters, if how I understand it, if how I apply it to my life matters. Is it at all possible that at times I might misunderstand the nature of the gift that God has given to us? Is it possible that I might misunderstand Jesus and who he is and who he's meant to be for us? And in so doing, is it possible that I might fail to properly receive this incredible gift that God has given us? I was challenged as I read in John chapter 1 where Jesus says, yet to all who did receive him, those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. How we receive Jesus matters. How I receive Jesus matters. But as we've already discussed, it's not so much about the gift that's being given. Jesus is the gift from God. But it's the way that I receive him that changes my future. What does it mean for me to receive Jesus? And is it at all possible that for any reason that I might imagine, I failed to truly take hold of who he is and accept that into my life? Is it possible that I've treated Jesus a little bit like an unappreciated gift because I failed to understand? Maybe, can you imagine being given a gift but not looking at the packaging to see what it was? Can you imagine not reading the instructions to see what all the functions of your jet ski might do? Can you imagine being given something of incredible worth and value, but because you didn't look at what it really was, it just ended up in the cupboard? It ended up on the bookshelf. Maybe it becomes the way that some of us treat our Bibles. Not you, but sometimes me. Sometimes I have to play this game, where did I last leave my Bible? Because I've realized that I've let it slip a little bit too far between times reading it, times spent in the Word. Is it possible that picture of a Bible, which can so easily become just another book on the shelf, is it possible that that could be a picture at times of our relationship with our Heavenly Father, our relationship with Jesus? That while I have accepted him in some way, I'm a Christian. At Christmas, I will do the Christian things. But he has not become a part of my life. I've not truly received him for who he is. And so he's become an unreceived gift that I fail to see the blessing from. I fail to see the life transformation from. I fail to walk in everything that has been given to me because I've not looked at who he truly was. So at Christmas, as we remember Jesus, the gift from God, I want to remind every single one of us that Jesus doesn't go out of fashion. That Jesus isn't an awkward present that you have to hide from someone else, but actually he is the greatest gift that you will ever receive. There is no substitute for him. There is no alternative to him. There is only, and always has only been, Jesus. So I think it's important for every single one of us to stop. Maybe to reflect, to understand, to look with fresh eyes at who he is and what he should mean for our life. That we wouldn't take him for granted, that we wouldn't leave it unappreciated and forgotten about, but that we would take hold of him and receive him with all of our heart, making him a part of who we are. I think whether you're new to faith or whether you've been following Jesus for some time now, it's important for us to just stop and remind ourselves and to look. Jesus, who are you? What does it mean for me to receive you into my life? And so today I just want to look briefly at these words prophesied by Isaiah before Jesus was even conceived. He understood because God told him who Jesus would be to us. And these words of prophecy are just as true today as they ever were, and just as necessary today as they ever have been. Just as relevant for every single one of us. And this is what Isaiah said. He said, "For unto us a child is born, a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. He will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." You could almost look at these names as descriptions of who Jesus is and is meant to be in your life. You could almost look at it like I'm reading the package of the gift that I've been given. Jesus Christ is meant to be and will be my wonderful counselor, my mighty God, my everlasting Father. He will be my Prince of Peace. And as I read this and as I see this, I should ask, is this what I'm seeing in my life? Is this what's transforming who I am? Have I accepted him as this? Or have I allowed him to become something other than this? Have I allowed him to be diminished? Have I allowed him to become irrelevant or outdated? Have I started to look somewhere else and failed to truly realize the gift that has been given to me? Because that's who Jesus was, that's who Jesus is, that's who Jesus always will be. And that's who he's promised to be for you. Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. We're going to unwrap these names just a little bit over the next few minutes, understanding what it might look like for every single one of us to receive and accept this into our life a little bit more. Let's start with Wonderful Counselor. I don't know what comes to mind when you think about Wonderful Counselor, but sometimes I think we take for granted the words and the wisdom of Jesus. You know, in his day, some 2,000 years ago, Jesus revolutionized the way that we think and the way that we see the world. He transformed the world as we know it. When he spent his time teaching and preaching to crowds, and it doesn't matter whether you were a common worker or a fisherman. It doesn't matter if you were a religious teacher. It doesn't matter if you were a scribe or a lawyer. It doesn't matter if you were a wise and learned or a ruler even. Everybody marveled at the way that Jesus taught. Everybody marveled at the authority with which he spoke, with the wisdom that he shared. He transformed the way that the world thinks about God, about the law, and about love. And so much of everything that we see today in our society is built from his teaching and his wisdom. But you know, in recent history, many people would say that we've moved beyond our need for God, beyond our need for his teaching. I mean, it was in the 1880s even that Nietzsche said, God is dead, because we've progressed, we've gone too far beyond him. We don't need him anymore. We've learned more about the world around us than ever before. and we think that we need him less than ever before. We tell ourselves, hey, haven't we grown up? Haven't we outgrown this idea of Jesus? Could it almost be that we think about Jesus, we treat him the way that our kids treat presents at Christmas? Oh, that's cute, but we don't really need him now. We're too big for this. We can look after ourselves. But I want to remind you that Jesus speaks with as much wisdom and as much authority today as he ever has. We should never make the mistake of keeping his teachings as something that just happened in the past and reading about it like it was history. Oh, back then in that time, Jesus' teaching was revolutionary. No, it's just as powerful today as it ever has been. Oh, back then when he said that, it was relevant. No, what he taught then is just as relevant today as it ever has. His words have not gone out of fashion, and they still bring life and hope and freedom. You don't have to look very far around in the world around us, right, to see that our world is just as lost as it ever is. You can see the fruit of the wisdom of this world, right? And it's not good. More than ever, our society, our people, you and me, more than ever, we need a wonderful counselor. But you don't have to just find these teaching in a book. When it says Jesus is the wonderful counselor, it's not talking about the scriptures. It's talking about who Jesus is and who he will be for you. You see, when you have this picture of a counselor, it's not an empty book to read. It's not a set of instructions. It's actually the picture of a counselor that would sit beside a ruler and provide advice when it was needed. Can you see this picture of that's who Jesus wants to be for you, that he would be your wonderful counselor, that when you were at a loss for what to do, when you needed wisdom for what's immediately in front of you, you could just listen and he would speak, that he would lead and guide you. He would show you what to think and what to do and how to do it. Have you ever felt out of your depth? I know I have. It's all right. I felt out of my depth. Sometimes it's in the way that what is required of me for parenting. Parenting is hard. How am I meant to know what to do to raise these incredible little people? Have you ever felt out of your depth at work? I just don't know what I need to do here. This is getting a little bit beyond me. Have you ever struggled to negotiate friendships, family, relationships, life and future? Have you ever felt like you didn't have enough knowledge, enough understanding, enough wisdom? Well, Jesus wasn't just wise. Jesus is wisdom. And he's promised he'll be with you in every moment. He knows what you should do. He's not concerned about it. He's not at a loss. Jesus knows exactly what you should do in any moment if you would just stop and listen. How should you parent that troubled child? I don't know, but Jesus does. What's the best approach to take in this situation at work? Oh, that's beyond me. But you know what? Jesus isn't surprised. He knows what to do. He'll give you the steps and he'll create within you a heart that is able to follow them. You see, Jesus isn't some out-of-date guru that got left behind with modern times. He is the living word of God. He's the wonderful counselor for every person who will receive him. Would you stop? Would you quiet yourself? And would you understand that the wonderful counselor, Jesus, who is wisdom, would speak to you, would advise you, would teach you, would unpack life for you and help you understand not just what to do, but how to do it, the heart to carry as you do it. He'll help you. He will be in every situation. This is his promise, your wonderful counselor. But he's also mighty God, right? Sometimes when we think about Jesus as just the counselor, we think of him and we say he's our counselor, but we package it with this picture of, I don't know, have you ever spent time with a counselor? You know, they're quiet and they're unassuming, they're gentle. They don't tell you what to do, but they'll give suggestions. Like maybe you'll think about it like this. Maybe you might try this in the future. They're there to help, but they won't do it for you. They'll just provide suggestions. And so we package up this picture of a counselor a little bit like that, right? And so we think of Jesus as wonderful counselor. Jesus who is kind. Jesus who is wise. Jesus who is a loving helper. The Son of God. And Jesus is that. But do you see when Isaiah gives us his second name, it wasn't wonderful counselor and Jesus, meek and mild. No, it was Jesus, mighty God. Yeah. See, Jesus doesn't just give suggestions and then sit back and hope that it works out all right for us. He is the power and the authority to see his will and his way outworked around us. I don't know if you've ever looked at life and not only felt at a loss for what to do, but knew what to do, but knew that you didn't have enough to get it done. Maybe you've looked at situations and you've said, you know what, I know what to do, but I'm too afraid to do it because if I acted in the way that I consider to be right, well, the whole world might stand against me. Joe and I were talking about this, and we were talking with a friend about something that was happening in a school further up north, and we thought, I can't believe that they're doing that. But then we also recognized at the time that, oh wow, if they made this stand, the backlash that would stand against them. And we can look at these perspectives and we can do it in a very human way. I might choose to do what was right. I might obey my wonderful counselor. But then we think about it in human terms and say, but then I would have to be enough to stand against every opposition that might come. I would do what was right if I knew nothing bad would happen, right? I'd step out in faith if that big obstacle wasn't there in my way right now. You know, I know what I need to do, but I know I don't have the strength to do it. I'd trust God more if he would just tell me how it would work out in the end. You see, it's easy to feel like everything relies on us. And it's human nature to try and live like everything does rely on me. Can I tell you, man, that's a lonely place to be. That's a lonely way to live. Because there are definitely things going on in your life right now that are too much for you to handle. There's definitely circumstances that will rise up in front of you that will be too big, giants too real. There is spiritual powers and principalities that will oppose you and the work that God wants to do through you. And it's in times like this that you need to remind yourself that you walk with mighty God. Not baby Jesus, meek and mild, that's just a nice Christmas verse, but with Jesus Christ, the mighty God, the one who at his name every knee bows, the one who has overcome sin and death and won every victory, the one that is currently seated at the right hand of God, enthroned in power and authority. Do you know, if you've ever felt weak or alone, if you've ever felt like you're not enough, that the challenge ahead is too hard, if you've ever felt like there's evil out there that's just beyond your capacity to stand against, just read this passage again, because he will be your wonderful counselor and he will be your mighty God. Remind yourself that you walk hand in hand in the presence of the mighty God, that he's with you, and if he's with you, who could stand against you? He's the one who spoke the world into existence. And as he speaks his will into your life, he's not relying on you outworking it. He's saying, actually, I'm going to provide for it. I'm going to make a way for it. His promise is that he would protect and defend you, that he'd go before you. There is nothing in front of you that is too much for your mighty God to handle. So this Christmas, would you be reminded that he would not only be your wonderful counselor, but he would be your mighty God. The third name that Isaiah prophesies over Jesus is that he would be everlasting Father. And I think that's really important and really powerful to understand. Because when I think about God in human ways, I have no problems understanding and believing that God is wise and God is powerful. That's just what comes with being God, right? If he is God, he's going to be all-knowing. There's nothing that surprises my God. And because he's God, he's all-powerful. There is nothing that is too big for him. But do you know what's harder to get your head around? The fact that he's a loving God. Because I'm very good at condemning myself. I'm very good at understanding that there's no way that a wise and powerful God should love me. I'm very good at painting this picture of a God who's far off, a God who's judgmental, a God who punishes the wicked. But unfortunately, that's me. A God who despises sinful people, who requires that justice should be done. Sometimes I think in my mind, even though I don't mean to, I get this picture of like God as an angry parent who wants to smack me for doing naughty things. I don't know. I grew up in a time where it was okay to get smacked by your mum. And so sometimes I think that that's the way that God wants to respond to me. Oh, you shouldn't have done that. Come here, smack time. Yeah. But that's a very human picture of what God would be like, right? That's the kind of God that we would create for ourselves, one who is quick to anger and quick to judgment. But that's not who he is it? He's slow to judgment. He's a God full of grace and mercy. And because of his love for us, He gave his son for us. Jesus shows us an entirely new picture of who God is. And it's not a human picture at all. It's something that's beyond us, because he says, I am that. I'm wise and I'm powerful. But I'm also your everlasting Father. I'm relational and I love you. I'm not a God who is far off, but doesn't Jesus show us that he's the God who draws near? And Jesus came not to point out our failure. That would have been too easy. But he came to cover our sin and our shame with his grace and mercy. Do you know Jesus is our everlasting Father. That's his name. He's the Father who forgives all of our wrongdoing. He's the Father who runs towards a repentant Son. He's the Father who washes us clean and welcomes us close to him. If you've ever been holding yourself back from God, telling yourself this lie, God wouldn't love someone like me, you've got to understand that it's his name. He is your everlasting Father. He's the God who loves you, and you're worthy of his love because he'll make you worthy. You've got to understand this simple truth. It's written. It's in his name. He's everlasting Father. Do you know he made you? He handcrafted you. He designed you to know him and to be loved by him. Do you know that he desires to be with you? He draws you close to him. And there's nothing that he wants more than to know you and restore you. You can always and completely and totally rely on the loving heart of your everlasting Father. It's in his name. And finally, the last name that Isaiah prophesies about Jesus is that he would be our Prince of Peace. And that was a powerful picture back then. Somebody that would rule in peace, because their world, man, it was in chaos and turmoil back then. It was a world that was at war. Nations fighting one another, people fighting one another, people at war even within themselves. And Jesus came into that situation to bring peace. He is the Prince of Peace. And you know that as true as it was back then, it's just as true today that he wants to bring peace into your life, peace into your world, peace into this community. And when you receive him, when you truly receive Jesus, you receive him as a Prince of Peace, somebody that brings peace into your life. Because when you know his wisdom, and when you walk in his strength, and when you ground yourself in his love, there's nothing in this world. There's no circumstances or oppositions. There's no lies of the enemy. There's nothing that the people around you could do that could ever take you out of his love. There's no need to worry. There's no need to be anxious. There's no need to stress or to strive anymore. Because even when my circumstances are not what I would want, you know, I can be confident, because his promise to me is that he will work everything that's happening around me for my good as I just continue to pursue him. Jesus is the everlasting Father who reigns on an eternal throne. He's already won every victory. Why would I be afraid of what's happening right now? Why should I ever be concerned? No, because in all things I can know his peace. He's my Prince of Peace. I think there's so many people, even here today, that have received the peace, that need to receive the peace that Jesus promised. Because that's what he promised. In John 14:27, this is what he said. My peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I don't give as the world gives, so don't let your hearts be troubled. Do not be afraid. Do you know, Jesus, our Prince of Peace, has promised peace for your life. Have you received it today? In the world that we live in, it's chaos sometimes, right? It's so busy. There's so many demands, so many distractions. I know it's easy to let my peace slide, to just slip away. It's easy to become caught up in patterns that I'm not meant to live. Patterns of striving, of trying, of stressing, of straining. You know, you can lose your peace in so many different ways. You know, you could lose your peace by having a fallout with friends or family. Our relationships have such an ability to take our peace if we let it. I could lose my peace when circumstances seem beyond my control and I try to control them. I lose my peace. I could look at what's happening, not even just here, but in the world around me. I could have fear for my future or fear for the the future of my children. I could worry about what isn't even happening yet. And I could lose my peace. There's sickness, there's struggle, there's a devil at work against me. It's so easy to let my peace slip to the side. And if I ever find that I'm not walking in peace, what should I do? Because he has promised to be my Prince of Peace. Well, it's simple. Would I just draw close to him again, knowing that he rules and reigns in a kingdom of peace? Could I bring every anxious thought and every worry on my mind and just put it in front of him, trusting that I don't need to carry it on my own? Because carrying it in my own strength, that's the old way of living, right? Receiving God, trusting God is saying, actually, I'm going to trust that you're my wonderful counselor and my mighty God, that you love me. And so because you love me, I'll draw close to you in it. And I'm worried about this, God. Would you help me with it? And I know and I trust that as I tell you about it, you already know. You know what I need to do, and you have the power to see it done. If I ever find even a flicker of worry, if just an anxious thought crosses my heart, it's just a reminder that it's time to pray. It's time to seek the presence of God again, because he's my loving Father and I can draw near to him at any time. He hears my prayers. He comforts me. He aligns me. And it's his wise counsel that's going to lead me through it. But they're not empty steps. They're not lonely steps. Because he's going to walk with me. He's my ever-present help in time of need, who never leaves me or forsakes me. He's the mighty one who at his word all things happen. Why? Why would I worry? When I receive Jesus into my life and I allow him to be who he's promised to be, I live at peace. But did you know this idea of peace? Sometimes we make it very immediately focused. And we make peace just a fruit of the circumstances in our life. No matter, and we talk about it, no matter what's happening around me, I can have peace within me. But this idea of Prince of Peace actually has such a larger picture attached to it as well. Because since the very moment of creation, when Adam and Eve fell into sin, all of humanity has lived broken, in a state of rebellion against God. It's like we have been at war with him. And you might not have known it, but haven't you been living in a way that claims his glory, takes his authority, puts aside his will and lives for your own? You've been seeking your will and your ways and not his. You were made to bring him glory, but you take it for yourself. That's the world that we've all lived in. And it was into that world that Jesus was born. But he didn't come to win victory over us, did he? He came to win peace for us. And he paid the price for our rebellion, that we would actually be restored into right relationship with God himself. He won peace not just for our heart, but he won peace for our spirit, that we would live in right standing, right relationship. We would live at peace with God the Creator, that we would no longer know war with him, animosity against him, but actually we would be with him. Jesus reigns, Prince of Peace, reconciling and restoring lost sons and daughters back to the Father. He didn't come to conquer you. He came to forgive you and to welcome you into his presence. And it's from this name that everything else flows. He is our Prince of Peace. He's reconciled us right to the Father. He's brought peace between you and God. You're right with him now, accepted by him, but not just accepted, welcomed close, because he loves you. He's the everlasting Father who doesn't want you far off, doesn't want to just make you good enough. He wants to restore you to him. But he's the mighty God. He's the power and the authority. You don't need to do it in your own strength anymore. It's going to be done by him. And because he loves you and because he's with you, he's going to lead you and guide you in all things. He's your wonderful counselor. This is the gift of God to every single one of us.
Thanks for joining us. We pray that you and your family are richly blessed by the love and grace of Jesus. If you're ever in the area, we would love for you to join us for Sunday worship.